Okay, well, welcome back to the basement. I got a couple of things to talk about today. Uh, the first is this twin timber. We have at one of my local flying clubs an event coming up. It's a float plane event at an open house at one of the local parks that has a pond. So I thought it would be a good idea to see what I could come up with. And it just so happened that I had this float kit sitting around here in the basement and never used it, so I thought I'd put it on this twin timber. Now, why did I use the twin timber? Well, it's got differential thrust in addition to the water rudders, and it has reverse thrust. So, assuming I can keep it upright, I shouldn't have any problems getting it to and from whatever we're using for water insertion, water removal area. But I am a little worried about the fact that this airplane has a very high center of gravity compared to the regular Timber Evo and a high thrust line as well. So I'm going to have to be very careful taking off. Don't jam on the throttle. Have some up elevator, gradually put in some throttle. Otherwise, that high center of thrust could just tip this thing over and bury the front of those floats and flip it on its back. So it's going to be an interesting opportunity to demonstrate what the twin timber can do on floats. I don't think landing is going to be a particular issue, at least I hope not. I do have a few actual full-scale takeoffs and landings in a Cessna 206 float plane to rely on, and I think the principles are pretty simple. You want to get the airplane up on a step and then take off, and you want to land it with some up elevator with a gradual descent, a little power in, and make sure that you don't stall it in, because it's probably, given the fact that those floats are below the center of gravity, going to flip it on its back. So just real quickly here, I'm going to go get the camera and show what it took to put these floats on for those of you that have never done it. Installing floats on a timber is actually a pretty simple process, and it's covered in the manual for the turbo timber, but the twin timber doesn't mention it, and the same kit fits both. I did take a look at some YouTube videos of a twin timber flying off of water. It seems to perform pretty well. Now, you have to attach these floats, and there's not that many parts. There's a brace, there's the two supports, and the floats themselves. So you're not looking at very much to install. It's a little bit tricky in that you use the landing gear spring supports on the fuselage to install this brace that then goes backwards. You also have to get the two supports in the right order. The front support has more angle to it than the rear support. And that's important because you want the CG to be somewhat aft with the battery in so that it doesn't dig into the water as you try to take off. Installing the floats themselves involves just putting in these two cross braces, and you have to take these attach brackets off, and there's holes in those horizontal brackets that those screws that go down in there fit through, and then the gear legs, so to speak, fit right there, and the same in the back. Installing the water rudders is a little bit tricky. Let's go around there. Well, here we are at the back of the float where the water rudder is attached, and the spring on both sides goes to the outside, and the monofilament line goes to the outside. The rudders themselves are also on springs, so that if you happen to hit something, it won't tip the airplane over. And then the monofilament line goes back the tail wheel assembly, and there's a couple of little rods that it attaches to back here, so that when you turn the rudder, those water rudders turn in the same direction as the aircraft rudder. Those need to be fairly tight, but not too tight. Right here, just really tight. So to hold those in, you can just loop that monofilament line around through those holes and tie a knot in it on both sides. Not difficult, just a little bit tedious and a lot of detail work there, but not too bad. So here it is. This airplane is now ready to take out to the pond in Danville, Indiana, and fly hopefully on next Saturday, weather permitting. Topic number 2 is the Turbo Timber Evo landing gear. Everybody knows that when you strengthen something on a machine like this and you continue to stress it, you might find out that there's another point of failure that wasn't seen when something was so weak that it never showed up. And that's exactly what's happened with at least my Turbo Timber Evolution. So be warned that even though this landing gear is much more robust than the prior version, you can still mess it up badly. I've had 2 or 3, actually 2 instances lately where at takeoff, this propeller came off the motor shaft, went flying off right at takeoff, about when the airplane was 10 feet or so in the air, suddenly lost thrust, stalled, and went in and landed on the right main gear. So what I'm going to show you is the points of failure that I've discovered in this process and what I've done to repair them. So let's get started with point of failure number 1, the landing gear supports. Point of failure number 2 will be the actual gear legs themselves, and point of failure number 3 is the wheels, which I've already covered, but we're going to cover it again. So let's go see what happened with point of failure number 1. If you look closely here, you'll see some scars. This fuselage has been glued back together. After a prop failure, prop came off, the airplane nosedived and landed on that wheel and took out a big chunk of foam. Now the good news is that it did not break the landing gear mount under here, which had been a previous weak point. Those had been coming apart on people for years in the old timber. They were really, really weak. And this is actually a fairly easy repair with a little hot glue, putting that plug of foam back into the fuselage and gluing it in, and it has held up really well through a second, in fact, issue with the prop coming off and another rough landing. But something else broke. Well, I said broke, actually it didn't break, but what happened was this is going to break. Particular gear leg became very weak at that bend, and that's been the result. Every landing after that thing bent the first time, every landing that was the least bit less than perfect, this wheel would bend one way or the other on that point where that gear leg changes direction, so to speak. So there's the second weak point. The third weak point is the wheels. These are Dubro wheels, And I will guarantee you that if it had been those wheels, that foam would have separated from the hub with that landing. Guaranteed that this tire would have been ruined. There's no way to glue this back together effectively. There's just not enough meat in these hubs to hold that foam on once it separates. So there you go. There's the next 3 weak points in the Turbo Timber landing gear. And in fact, this Turbo Timber now has the landing gear off of the twin timber on it. And luckily I happen to have that around because you can't get the, well, I think you can actually get the landing gear for the Timber Evo from Horizon, but just happen to have that around, so I may or may not be ordering a new landing gear set for the Timber Evo. But we'll see. I'm going to leave these stock wheels on it for a while because, well, I have them. And it's a bit of a bother to put the Dubros on, so I'll fly them till they break. In conclusion, thanks for watching. I'm inside today. It's on Wednesday, May 1st, because, again, it's very, very windy today. I did get to fly this little bird yesterday, and I flew my Ultrix 600, which was a lot of fun on a very calm day. That was a blast. A chore. So with that happy note, I will leave you and hope that you have fair skies and calm winds ahead and you get to go out to your flying field and have some fun. Take care and thanks a lot for watching.